The desert was the kind that swallowed sound. No wind, no birds. Just the creak of saddle leather as Elias Crow rode beneath a sun that burned white in the sky. By the time the crook sign for Greywater appeared, his canteen was nearly dry. The town looked like it was holding its breath. A few sagging buildings, a saloon with one swinging door hanging loose, and a street so empty it could have been abandoned for years. But before Elias reached it, he saw him. A man sat behind a weathered booth just off the road, the kind of thing you'd see at a county fair, if county fairs were held in the middle of nowhere. A faded canvas sign flapped above him, the letters hand-painted in black. "I sell time." The trader was old, or maybe just worn out, skin like paper, eyes sharp as broken glass. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the booth's counter. "Hot day," he said, voice dry as the dust. Elias reined in his horse. "What's this supposed to be? Some kind of joke?" The man smiled without showing teeth. $1 for a year, that's the trade. You give me $1, I take a year. Simple as breathing." Elias huffed a laugh. "And what do I get for losing a year?" "You get to find out what you missed," the trader said. "And maybe, just maybe, you'll like it." It was stupid. Elias knew it. But something about the man, the way he didn't blink, the way his words seemed to sink into the heat, made Elias reach into his pocket. He dropped a silver dollar on the counter. The trader's hand darted out, faster than it should have been for someone his age. "Pleasure doing business," he said, tucking the coin away. Elias didn't feel anything at first. He clicked his tongue, urging his horse toward town. But as the sun slid toward the horizon, the shadows grew long, and he felt it. A sudden weight in his bones, a stiffness in his fingers. By the time he hit Main Street, something was wrong. The paint on the saloon door wasn't peeling anymore. The church steeple had been rebuilt. A shop he'd passed earlier now had a fresh coat of whitewash and a new sign. And then he saw the calendar nailed to the general store wall. The date. Read August 3rd, 1885. The last time he checked, it had been August 3rd. 1884. 1 year. Gone. Before we jump back in, make sure you subscribe. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special just for you. Another story, another secret. And maybe a whisper you weren't meant to hear. Elias stood there in the middle of the street, staring at that calendar like it had pulled a gun on him. His mouth went dry. A year gone. Not a day, not an hour, an entire year. He told himself there had to be some mistake, that maybe the shopkeeper had just nailed up an old calendar. But when he stepped inside, the store was bustling with people he didn't recognize. The bell above the door jingled, and a woman behind the counter looked up, her eyes lighting with familiarity. "Well, if it ain't Elias Crow," she said, as if she'd seen him just yesterday. "Heard you was out on the trail again. Figured you'd be back sooner or later." Elias forced a nod, unsure what to say. "Yeah, been ridden a while." But the conversation didn't stop there. Customers greeted him by name. An old man in the corner asked how the ranch was doing. And a younger fellow slapped him on the back, thanking him for sorting out that mess in Silver Gulch. Elias smiled thinly, playing along, but his insides felt hollow. He hadn't done any of those things. Out on the boardwalk, he tried to make sense of it. The trader's words echoed in his head. You get to find out what you missed. If this was some kind of joke, it was a cruel one. He walked past the saloon and caught sight of himself in the window glass. His face hadn't changed much, but his eyes, there was something different in them. A tiredness that hadn't been there that morning. By sundown, Elias had heard enough stories from strangers to fill a lifetime. Apparently, in the last 12 months, he'd worked as a ranch foreman, broken up a poker scam, and even spent a month guarding the mail stage. None of it rang true. None of it belonged to him. As night fell, he found himself back at the edge of town. staring at that same lonely booth in the moonlight. The traitor was still there, sitting perfectly still, like he'd been waiting for him. "Back so soon?" the old man said with a thin smile. Elias stepped closer. "What did you do to me?" The traitor's smile widened. "Nothing you didn't pay for." The traitor leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking like old bones. "You gave me $1, I took a year. Simple as that." "That wasn't the deal," Elias growled. "You didn't tell me." "I told you exactly," the old man interrupted, his voice as smooth as creek water, but carrying a weight that made Elias's stomach twist. $1 for 1 year. What you do with that year, or what's done with it, ain't my concern." Elias's fists clenched. "I didn't do anything with it. I don't remember a damn thing." The traitor's eyes glimmered in the lantern light. "That's because you weren't the one living it. You traded it away. Someone else bought it." Elias felt his blood run cold. "Bought my year?" The man nodded slowly, then reached under the counter. He pulled out a small ledger bound in cracked leather. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded, but the handwriting was steady and precise. He slid it toward Elias. "This is my price list," the traitor said. "You ain't the first to buy, and you won't be the last." Elias flipped through the pages. The entries made his skin crawl. $1 equals 1 year. $5 equals 10 years. $10 equals a lifetime. Names were scribbled beside each transaction, some crossed out, some underlined. One caught his eye. E. Crow, 1 year. Next to it, in smaller handwriting, was a second name. One he didn't recognize. "Who's this?" Elias asked, pointing to it. "That," the traitor said, "is the man who lived your missing year." Elias slammed the book shut. "I want it back." The old man chuckled, low and humorless. "Once time spent, it belongs to the one who lived it. The only way to reclaim it is to take it from him, and believe me, he ain't gonna give it up easy." The booth's lantern flickered, casting the traitor's face into shadow. "Careful, cowboy," he added. "Time is a dangerous currency. Spend too much, and you might not have enough left to see tomorrow." The next morning, Elias went looking for answers. He figured if anyone in Greywater knew about the old man at the booth, it'd be the law. Sheriff Amos Harlan was a big man with a belly that hung over his gun belt and a mustache the color of iron. He was sitting on the porch of the jailhouse, rocking back in his chair when Elias stepped up. "Crow," the sheriff said, squinting at him like he was sizing up a rattlesnake. "Heard you was back in town. Can't say I'm surprised you went poking around where you shouldn't." Elias leaned on the railing. "You know about the traitor?" Harlan's rocking stopped. For a long moment, the only sound was the creak of the chair settling. "Best you leave that one alone," the sheriff said finally. "I can't," Elias replied. "He took a year from me, sold it to someone else." The sheriff's jaw worked, like he was chewing on the words before spitting them out. "That man ain't right, Crow. Folks call him the devil's banker. He's been comin' and going for as long as I can remember. Never looks older, never looks younger. Just the same." "What happens to people who make a deal with him?" Elias asked. The sheriff's eyes darkened. "Some lose a year like you. Some lose decades overnight, wake up gray-haired, bones creaking, barely able to stand, and some—" He paused, glancing toward the cemetery on the hill. "Some never wake up at all." Elias felt a cold knot form in his gut. "So you're telling me no one's ever beaten him?" Harlan leaned forward, his voice dropping low. "Couple tried. Thought they could steal back their time or cheat him somehow. One fella shot him point blank in the chest. Traitor just stood there, smiled, and the next thing you know, the shooter's body dropped to the ground, 100 years old." The sheriff pushed himself out of the chair, towering over Elias. "You want my advice, Crow? Ride out, forget the year, forget the traitor. Live what's left of your life and don't look back. Elias met his gaze. I can't do that, Harlan sighed, looking tired all of a sudden. Then I hope you've made peace with whatever's waiting for you on the other side, because if you keep going down this road, you ain't coming back. Elias found her in the saloon that afternoon, sitting at a corner table with a glass of water she barely touched. She was young, or at least she should have been. Her hair was pale blonde, but streaked with silver. Fine lines webbed around her eyes, though her face still held the softness of someone in her 20s. She watched him approach with eyes that seemed older than the desert itself. You're Crow, she said, as if she'd been expecting him. That's right, Elias replied, pulling out the chair across from her. And you are? Clara, she said, Clara Vance. I heard you went to see him. Elias didn't have to ask who him was. Yeah, and I heard you did too. She looked down into her glass. I did. 2 months ago. My father was dying. Doctor said he had weeks left. I didn't have money for a surgeon, didn't have a way to save him. Then the traitor found me. She swallowed hard. I gave him $5. Elias felt the weight of the number. 10 years, he said quietly. Clara nodded. The next morning, my father was sitting up in bed, eating breakfast like nothing had ever been wrong. He's fine now, healthy, doesn't even know what I did. And you? Elias asked. She held out her hands. The skin was thin, the veins standing out like blue rivers. I was 24, Crow. Now my body says 34, maybe more. It's like my bones are rotting faster than the rest of me. Her voice cracked. Sometimes I wake up and I swear I can feel another year slipping away. Elias sat back, the truth settling heavier on him than the desert heat. You can't get them back? Clara shook her head. The traitor warned me. Once you trade, it's gone. You can't undo it, only pay more. She gave a bitter laugh. And I don't have anything left to pay with. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The piano in the corner played a slow, sad tune, the kind that made you think about all the things you'd lost. Finally, Clara looked up at him. Whatever. You're planning, Crow. Be careful. He's been here longer than anyone can remember. People say he's not a man at all, just something that wears the shape of one. Elias met her gaze. I don't care what he is. I'm getting my year back. Word about the trader's booth had a way of spreading, especially in a place like Greywater where gossip was faster than the stagecoach. By nightfall, Elias overheard talk in the saloon. 3 men, hard-eyed drifters who smelled of whiskey and gun oil, were planning to pay the old man a visit and lighten his till. Their leader, a broad-shouldered brute named McCall, laughed loud enough for the whole saloon to hear. If he's selling years, he's got 'em stacked somewhere. Gold, silver, whatever it is, we'll take it. His 2 partners grinned like wolves. Elias tried to warn them. You don't want to do that. McCall spat tobacco into the spittoon. Mind your own business, cowboy. Ain't nobody too old to bleed. The next morning, Elias was at the edge of town when they made their move. The trader's booth stood in the same place, the old man sitting calm as a preacher before Sunday service. The 3 outlaws approached, guns already drawn. McCall leveled his revolver. Empty the box, old man. All of it. The trader didn't flinch. You boys can have what's yours, he said softly. Problem is, none of this belongs to you. One of the outlaws, a wiry man with a scar across his jaw, stepped around the counter to check the cash box. He didn't make it 3 steps before he froze, his eyes going wide. His hair bleached white in seconds, skin shriveling as if the life was being sucked right out of him. He crumpled to the dirt, a skeleton wrapped in leather and rags. McCall swore and fired. The bullet hit the traitor square in the chest and stayed there, suspended in the air like it had struck honey. Time itself seemed to slow. McCall's hand trembled as deep wrinkles carved into his face. His shoulders hunched, his breathing turned ragged. In the space of a heartbeat, The man aged 40 years. The third outlaw dropped his gun and bolted, screaming. The traitor didn't move, didn't chase, but the runner's steps slowed like he was wading through deep water. By the time he reached the road, his legs gave out. He lay gasping in the dust, his hair snow-white. The traitor calmly plucked the bullet from Mitter, set it on the counter, and looked at Elias. "Some folks don't understand the cost of stealing time," he said. Elias felt his stomach turn, but he held the old man's gaze. "Then maybe you should start dealing with people who can pay." The traitor's smile was small and cold. "I already am." 2 days after the outlaw's failed robbery, Elias found his face staring back at him from a wanted poster nailed to the wall outside the general store. $500 reward, dead or alive. Elias Crow wanted for armed robbery, murder, and train derailment. He stared at it, every muscle in his body going tight. The list of crimes was long, too long, and each one had supposedly taken place in the past 12 months, the very year he'd lost. A man stepped out of the store, holding a sack of flour, and gave Elias a sidelong glance. "You've got some nerve showing your face here after what you did in Red Bluff." Elias turned toward him. "I've never been to Red Bluff," the man snorted. "Tell that to the sheriff who found 6 dead men and your hat sittin' in the middle of the street." He shoved past Elias and walked on. By the time Elias reached the saloon, whispers were trailing behind him. Some folks stared openly, others ducked out of sight. Clara was at her usual table, but when she saw him, her face went pale. "They say you've been killin' folk," she whispered when he sat down. "They say you're workin' with the Dunbar gang now, Elias. I saw a man in town last week who looked just like you. Same eyes, same walk. But there was something wrong about him." Elias felt his jaw clench. "The traitor told me someone bought my ear. If that man's been walking around with my face, then he's been using it to make me an outlaw." Clara's hands tightened around her glass. "If the sheriff hears about this, he won't ask questions. He'll just hang you." Before Elias could answer, a shadow fell across their table. Sheriff Harlan stood there, one hand resting on the butt of his Colt. "Crow," the sheriff said, his voice low and steady. "You're coming with me. We've got a lot to talk about, and I reckon you won't like where the conversation ends." Sheriff Harlan's office smelled of stale coffee and dust. Elias sat in the lone wooden chair across from the desk, his wrists free but his Colt removed from its holster. Harlan paced slow, boots thudding on the floorboards. "You got half the territory looking for you," the sheriff said. "If you ride out now, maybe you can dodge the rope. Stay here, and they'll string you up in the town square." "I didn't do those things, Sheriff," Elias said. "You've got to believe me. Somebody else did, a man who looks just like me." Harlan stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing. "And I suppose you're going to tell me the traitor had something to do with it." Elias leaned forward. "I gave him $1. He took a year. Sold it to someone else. That man's been using it to ruin my name." For a moment, Harlan said nothing. Then he muttered a curse under his breath. "If that's true, Crow, you're already dead. Only question is whether you're buried in a box or buried in someone else's life." Elias didn't waste time. The moment Harlan left to answer a knock at the door, he slipped out the back and headed for the edge of town. The booth was there, same as always, the traitor sitting behind it with that same unsettling stillness. "You're looking troubled," the old man said, his eyes glinting. "I want my year back," Elias said flatly. The traitor's smile was slow and deliberate. "Once spent, it belongs to the one who lived it. I can't just hand it over. You want it back, you'll have to take it from him." Elias stepped closer. "Where is he?" The traitor tilted his head. "You think I give away my customers' names? That would be bad business, but I can make you an offer." Elias's gut tightened. "What kind of offer?" "Trade me 10 years of your future," the old man said, "and I'll give you The chance to meet him face to face. Then, if you can take it from him, the year is yours again. Elias's hand twitched toward his gun, but the traitor didn't flinch. Think hard, cowboy, the old man continued. Time's the only currency that matters. And yours is running out faster than you think. Elias didn't remember agreeing. One moment he was staring at the traitor's cold, knowing eyes. And the next, the world seemed to lurch sideways. The booth, the desert, even the sunlight bled away like ink in water. When his vision cleared, he was standing on the edge of a dusty crossroads, the sky bruised with an approaching storm. A figure was waiting there. At first, Elias thought he was looking into a mirror, same weathered face, same scar on the chin from a saloon brawl in Santa Fe, same dark eyes. But the resemblance ended in the expression. This man's smile was all wrong. It was crooked, cold, like it had never touched kindness. So, the stranger said, "You're the original." Elias's hand hovered near his gun. "And you're the thief." The man chuckled low, shaking his head. "Thief? I paid fair and square. $1 for a year. And I lived it better than you ever would have. Spent it ridden with the Dunbar gang, tacking gold off trains, women off the arms of men too slow to stop me. I wore your name like a fine coat, Crow. You ruined my name," Elias said. The man's eyes gleamed. "I made it famous." Lightning flashed in the distance, the wind beginning to howl. Elias could feel the strange pull of the place, like the air was heavier, charged with something not of this world. "I'm here to take it back," Elias said. The double smile widened. "You think you can just draw on me and your year will come running? No, Crow. Time's a stubborn thing. If you want it, you're gonna have to earn it." He unbuttoned his coat, revealing a revolver at his hip, Elias's revolver. "One fight," the man said. "Winner walks away with the year. Loser walks away with nothing." The wind roared harder, dust swirling between them. Somewhere far off, Elias thought he could hear the traitor's voice, faint but certain. "Careful, cowboy. The clock is already ticking." The wind at the crossroads seemed to hum, vibrating in Elias's bones. His double stood there, calm as a church bell at noon, fingers twitching over the grip of Elias's stolen revolver. Lightning split the sky, and in the brief flash, Elias saw movement in the shadows behind him. The traitor was there, not walking, not standing, but present, like he'd been pulled out of the darkness itself. "Your odds aren't good," the old man said softly, his voice carrying even over the storm. "He's got your year and his own. That makes him faster, stronger, sharper." Elias didn't turn to face him. "So what's your offer?" 10 years, the traitor replied. 10 from your future. I'll put them into your hands right. Now your draw will be quicker, your aim steadier, your will unshakable. Elias's jaw tightened. "And if I lose?" The traitor's smile was all teeth. "Then those 10 years belong to me, same as the one you've already lost. You'll be a husk before your body hits the ground." For a moment, Elias thought about Sheriff Harlan's warning, about Clara's pale hands trembling over her glass, about the men who had aged into corpses at the traitor's touch. But then he thought about the wanted posters, the lies, the blood. On his name that wasn't his doing. He turned his head just enough to see the traitor's cold, glinting eyes. "Do it." The old man stepped closer. His fingers, dry and cool, closed around Elias's wrist. Pain shot up his arm, sharp and biting, like every bone was being etched with the years to come. He gasped, but when the traitor let go, he felt it. Strength in his shoulders, fire in his muscles, his heartbeat hammering like a war drum. "Now," the traitor said, stepping back into the dark. "Let's see if time's on your side." The double smirked. "Looks like you made a deal. Shame it'll cost you twice." The storm raged overhead. Both men's hands hovered over their guns. Somewhere far away, a single clock began to tick. The first heartbeat after the clock's chime felt like an eternity. Elias could see every grain of dust swirling in the air between him and his double, every twitch of a finger, every crease in the man's sly grin. The power the traitor had given him stretched each moment thin as taffy, and he knew he was seeing time the way the old man must see it, slow, pliable, alive. The second heartbeat came, and the world snapped forward. Both men drew. Elias's Colt cleared leather. Fraction faster, but the double fired first. The bullet tore through the air toward Elias's chest and stopped, hanging in front of him, spinning in place. It pulsed with a strange light, like a dying star. Elias fired. His own bullet left the barrel in a streak of silver, splitting the dust between them. The double twisted aside, but the shot grazed his arm, and Elias saw something impossible. A flicker of youth draining from the man's face, a wrinkle forming, the shine in his eyes dulling. They moved again, faster, harder. Each shot in. This strange duel didn't just wound flesh, it took time. A graze stole months. A deep hit might steal years. Elias understood now why the traitor smiled so much. This was his currency made visible, traded in bursts of smoke and lead. The double's next shot skimmed Elias's shoulder. He felt it instantly, a stiffness in the joint, the faint ache of age. Rage boiled in his chest. He stepped into the storm of dust closing the distance. Their revolvers roared in unison, bullets hissing past her freezing middle like beads of glass. Finally, Elias saw his opening. The double stumbled, his boot catching on a rut in the road. Elias raised his Colt and fired point blank into his chest. The man's body jerked, his eyes going wide. Then, as the blood spread across his shirt, something else happened. His hair grayed in seconds. His skin sagged, and the vitality that had fueled his smirk evaporated. Elias felt a jolt rush into him, a flood of warmth, memory, and weight. His stolen years slammed back into place. The double collapsed into the dirt, coughing a sound that was half a laugh. "Enjoy it, Crow," he rasped. "Doesn't mean you beat him." Before Elias could ask what he meant, the man's body crumbled into dust, carried away on the wind. The storm died as suddenly as it had begun. The dust settled, the crossroads faded, and Elias found himself standing on the edge of Greywater's main street. The air was still, unnaturally so, and the town looked different. The saloon that had sagged on one side now stood tall with a fresh coat of paint. The church bell, long silent, was ringing in the distance. A woman in a blue dress crossed the street carrying a basket of bread, humming a tune Elias didn't recognize. For a moment, he thought maybe this was the better outcome, that getting his year back had somehow repaired the town's decay. But then he noticed the faces. People he remembered from before were gone, replaced by strangers who smiled at him like they'd known him all their lives. The names painted on shop signs had changed. The sheriff's office was now run by someone he'd never met. Elias's stomach knotted. He'd altered the current, but the river of time had carved a new path. He ducked into the saloon, scanning the room for a familiar face. Clara wasn't at her usual table. Instead, a younger woman with the same pale hair was laughing with friends near the bar. Elias's chest tightened. It was Clara, but not the one he knew. Her hair was free of silver, her skin smooth, her laugh unburdened. When she noticed him looking, she offered a polite smile. "Evenin', stranger," the words hit like a punch. She didn't know him. The version of her who had traded years for her father's life no longer existed. Maybe she'd never met the traitor at all. Elias left the saloon and stood in the street, feeling the weight of the revolver at his side. The air shimmered, and the traitor appeared beside him as if he'd been there the whole time. "You got your year," the old man said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "But time don't go back to the way it was. You pull one thread, the whole weave shifts." Elias turned toward him, anger burning in his eyes. You could have told me. The trader smiled thinly. You didn't ask. Elias walked the length of Main Street, scanning every face, every storefront, searching for something that felt solid. The town was alive in a way he hadn't seen before. Laughter spilling from the saloon. Children chasing each other past the general store. The smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. On the corner where the sheriff's office once stood, there was now a tailor's shop. The man who used to tip his hat at Elias every morning was nowhere to be found. The blacksmith's forge sat cold, its windows boarded up. In the cemetery on the hill, some gravestones were gone, replaced by empty patches of grass, while others bore names Elias didn't recognize. The worst was finding Clara's father, the man she'd sacrificed. 10 years for sitting on the porch of a small farmhouse outside town, holly and strong. He waved as Elias rode by, but there was no flicker of recognition in his eyes. Clara herself, younger and untouched by the weight of the trader's bargain, was helping her mother hang laundry, humming under her breath. Elias wanted to speak to her, to tell her about the woman she used to be, but the words stuck in his throat. This Clara didn't need saving. In the saloon that night, Elias overheard new rumors. Some folks spoke of a rancher who had died years ago now running cattle on the far side of the ridge. Others whispered about people disappearing in the middle of the day, their places in the world quietly filled by strangers who swore they'd always lived here. Elias sat alone at a table, nursing a glass of whiskey, the trader's words circling in his head. Pull one thread, the whole weave shifts. The old man's voice broke into his thoughts, though Elias hadn't seen him enter. Tell me, Crow, does the world feel better now? Elias looked up, meeting those cold, amused eyes. It feels wrong. The trader's grin widened. That's because it isn't yours anymore. You're just borrowing it. The night was black and windless when Elias left the saloon. The moon hung low over Greywater, silvering the rooftops and turning the dirt road pale as bone. He had the uneasy sense that the town was watching him, every lit window an eye, every shadow a held breath. He didn't hear the trader approach. One moment the street was empty. The next, the old man was leaning casually against a hitching post, as though he'd been there for hours. You've got your year back, the trader said, but you wear it like a coat that don't quite fit. Elias stopped a few paces away. You've twisted everything. Clara don't know me. Half the folks I knew are gone. That's the trouble with time, Crow, the trader said, smiling thin. It's never as simple as talking and giving back. Change one thing, you change it all. Elias felt his jaw tighten. So why are you here? The trader's smile widened. To make you an offer. He reached into his coat and pulled out a single silver dollar, its surface gleaming in the moonlight. $1. You give it to me, and I'll send you back to the start. You'll get a brand new life. No outlaw's name, no debts, no missing years. But you won't remember this one, not a second of it. Elias stared at the coin in the trader's hand. The thought of a clean slate was tempting, a life without this shadow dogging his every step. But the idea of forgetting Clara's tired. Smile, Sheriff Harlan's warnings, even the duel for his stolen year. It made something deep inside him twist. What's the catch? He asked. The trader chuckled. The catch is you won't know what you lost. Maybe you'll be better off. Maybe you'll be worse. Time's a gamble, Crow. Always has been. Elias didn't answer right away. The night seemed to lean in, waiting for him to speak. Somewhere in the dark, a clock ticked. Elias stood in the middle of the empty street, the trader's silver dollar glinting between them like a tiny captured moon. The air was heavy, silent except for the slow, steady tick of some unseen clock. He could almost feel the weight of the years balanced in that coin, every decision, every mistake, every moment he'd fought to reclaim. If he took the deal, he could be someone else. Somewhere else. No wanted posters. No stolen time. But he'd lose everything he'd learned in this life. Clara's face, the sheriff's warnings, the strange, bitter taste of victory in the duel that had won back his year. The traitor's voice was soft, coaxing. One toss of the coin, Crow. Heads, you start fresh. Tails, you keep what you've got. Let time decide for you. Elias didn't trust him, but he also didn't trust himself. His thumb rubbed the edge of the coin. The metal was cool, almost cold enough to bite. He thought about what Clara had said once, the Clara who no longer existed, about feeling another year slip away in her sleep. He thought about the outlaws, turned to husks in the dirt. He thought about the man with his face, laughing even. As he turned to dust, with a slow breath, he flicked the coin into the air. It spun, catching the moonlight, flashing silver with each turn. The sound of its rotation filled his ears until it was the only sound in the world. The traitor's smile deepened, shadows stretching long around him. The coin began to fall. Elias reached out his hand. And the story ends before it lands. Maybe Elias chose to start over. Maybe he kept the life he fought to reclaim, or maybe the traitor decided for him. In Greywater, time is never lost. It's just owned by someone else. If you were in Elias Crow's boots, would you take the deal? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more tailies from the edge of the West, where the sun sets on both the living and the damned, subscribe before time runs out.